Hi, Philly faithful. My name is Maria Pardini, and welcome to the Graces of Catholic Education podcast, a place where grace shapes Catholic education one future saint at a time. The mission of this podcast is to build a faith-filled place for Philly's Catholic educators to share their faith, hear innovative practices for today's challenging classrooms, and be inspired by others who are tackling this wild and blessed ride of Catholic education. Join us as we explore the grace that guides us, informing the hearts and minds of Philly's future saints. Welcome back to the Graces of Catholic Education podcast and our special feature for the summer, the Graces Summer Reading Club. Today, we're diving into the intro and chapter 1 of Sweet Jesus, Is It June Yet? By Amy Cattapan. Reading Amy's introduction to this book felt like looking in a mirror for me. Like Amy, I am a proud product of 12 years of Catholic education, and I attended it right here in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. But my path as an educator actually took me through the world of public education first. I'm a lifelong special ed teacher, and because of that, my career has been incredibly diverse. I've taught in public and private schools, rural and urban settings, affluent neighborhoods, and the inner city. I've worked with students who have mild learning disabilities and students facing severe mental and physical challenges. The absolute richness of these varied experiences completely shaped me as an educator, and I still use the lessons I learned in those different classrooms every single day. Also, like Amy, I knew I wanted to be a teacher from a very young age. My mom was a teacher, and I vividly remember playing school at home. I used to get so excited when my teachers would give me their old, outdated teacher editions to play with. Now, my brother absolutely hated this game, mostly because, unfortunately for him, he was my only student. And look, I'm still waiting for the Hollywood call to make a movie about my teaching career. I'm convinced my story is just as inspirational as Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds or Hilary Swank in Freedom Writers. But the reality of teaching isn't always a Hollywood movie. I've spent many a Friday afternoon with my head on my desk, staring at the walls thinking, why on earth did I choose this career? Fortunately for me, I'd usually head to happy hour with my teacher friends right after, find some laughs, and live to fight another day. What I've realized later, though, in my career was that during those heavy, overwhelming days, I personally was missing something crucial. I wasn't truly connecting the daily work I was doing to the actual real-life teachings of Jesus. It should have been glaringly obvious, but for some reason, it wasn't. And the crazy thing was, on paper, I was doing all the right things. I was a faithful Catholic. I was actively teaching in Catholic schools. I attended daily Mass frequently. And I was literally teaching religion class to my students. I was surrounded by the faith every single hour of the day. Yet it was still so easy to separate my daily classroom survival from my personal relationship with Jesus. And that's exactly why Amy's introduction resonated with me so deeply. It reminds me, and all of us, that Jesus had many of the exact same struggles with his disciples that we have with our students. The answer, though, to all the mess, the crazy schedules, the annoying administrative hurdles, the out-of-control parent emails, and the negative energy that can sometimes creep into a faculty room, the answer to all of it is Jesus. There's a famous framed picture that hangs in many of our archdiocesan schools, and I honestly think it should be in every single one of them. It says, "Let it be known to all who enter here that Jesus is the reason for this school, the unseen but ever-present teacher in all its classes, the model of its faculty, and the inspiration of its students." My hope is that this book and the conversations that Joe and I are going to have will help all of us remember that truth as we head into our summer. Moving right into chapter 1, I have to say, I absolutely love the title Amy chose. Jesus began small. What a powerful, necessary reminder for all of us that no matter how long we've been in the classroom, whether it's been 10, 15, 20, or even more years than that, we all started small. Every single veteran teacher was once a brand new teacher. Amy focuses heavily on Jesus's humble beginnings, comparing them to those overwhelming first days in a classroom. For me, the memories of my very first teaching job truly set the stage for everything else I have ever done in my career. There were so many times throughout those early months that I was deeply humbled by this job and by the unexpected lessons I had to learn on the fly. I think it is incredibly important for seasoned teachers to never forget where they came from and how it actually felt to be new. At the same time, it's just as vital for our new educators, whom we call novice teachers in my Beacon Academy, to not lose sight of the fact that the colleagues they see every day, seamlessly moving through the chaos of a school day, were once just as lost and overwhelmed as they might feel right now. As we start looking at this journey, this chapter gives us a beautiful reminder that even when we don't feel it, God is so incredibly pleased with you for taking on this sacred vocation of teaching. Notice I use the word vocation rather than mission, because as I mentioned earlier, this is a distinct, holy calling on your life. And whether you have been living out this vocation for 20 years, 20 days, or even 20 minutes, even if absolutely no one else in your school building or your life stops to tell you they are proud of you, please never forget that God is proud of you. Each and every one of us is a beloved child of God, and He is so well pleased with your yes to this vocation. As we reflect on what it means to begin small and embrace our humble beginnings, it invites us to look at how we navigate the steep learning curves of the classroom without losing our peace. All right, Joe, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to be on a talk show. You know, growing up, you're never going to believe this. Aunt Cindy in Pittsburgh loved having talk shows on, whether it was Ellen, Regis, and Kelly. We watched The View, you know, so this is perfect. I just want to say hi to my Aunt Cindy in Pittsburgh watching us today. I finally did it, Aunt Cindy. I'm on a talk show.
Aunt Cindy's, we should have her featured on the talk
She would love it.
on the Graces, because I feel like she's been on the Graces last time you were on.
Yes.
Yes, we mentioned Aunt Cindy. Hi, Aunt Cindy.
And equal time rule, Aunt Chris across the street. How you doing?
All right. Okay, Aunt Chris. We don't want to forget Aunt Chris. All right. So we ready to get into our book?
Yes, absolutely. So first up on the headlines today, did you hear? Oh, wait, the book. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay, let's try and focus. All right, here we are. First discussion. So let's get into this. So when you think back on your own small beginnings as a novice teacher, what was the most humbling lesson you think you had to learn? And how did you see God working through that early vulnerability?
I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest with you. No, I serious. You know, I went to the premier Catholic university in the city of Philadelphia, LaSalle University. They prepared me so well. The coursework was excellent. The professors were all classroom teachers. But to that point, I had only done one-day lessons, or, you know, go back 1 week to work in small groups and then the project the next week. I never taught a unit before. I never taught, you know, the same group of students multiple days in a row. And so when I first got before real life students who were getting a real life education, I stopped in my tracks because I had no idea where to go from there. My first classes, and I student taught at Roman Catholic High School, proud part of our archdiocesan system.
Broad and Vine,
purple and purple and the gold. When I got in front of these students, I froze because I had no idea what I was doing. And so I prepared, you know, this elaborate lecture that took 10 minutes. Then what do I do with the other half hour?
Right.
Okay. Now, my cooperating teacher, who still teaches at Rome, gave me the best idea and advice to go look at other teachers, the veteran teachers, and see what they do and how they engage with their students. And honest to God, everything I do in the classroom, from my do now bell ringers to playing music before class to some of the projects and activities, I can trace back to a teacher that I met early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I started my humble beginnings in Owen J. Roberts School District, which
Dr.
isn't
Furin.
which isn't too far from here. I was a public school special ed teacher, and so I started there, and in a different century, literally a different century than we're in now. And I was the only special ed teacher in the ever to go into that building, and the kids were the only special ed students to ever be in that building, because it used to be when they were identified, they went to another school in the district. So I was young, I was new, I was a girl from Delco, and I was out in rural Chester County. And so when you say like the phrase fish out of water, I was a fish out of water.
And it's still rural, but it's even more rural back then.
Yes, it was really way more rural back then. And I feel like, you know, I really sowed my oats there, literally. But the lessons that I learned from those teachers, I mean, I think one of the biggest mentors I had was Sheila Benich Harden, who is still out in this area to this day. And she took me under her wing. I was a novice special ed teacher, no idea what I was doing. And she just showed me the ropes, and things that I still do, I can attribute to Sheila and to Dina and to Paula, and even the regular ed teachers that I worked with, because I was new. I had no idea we were doing inclusion. Like, no one knew what inclusion was then. It was, the only rule was you couldn't take the kids out of the classroom. They had to stay in the classroom for every piece of instruction. So we were really, my office was like a copy room. I had no office. There was no room for me. So, I mean, to say I started humbly in a very, it's not far from the truth.
Well, funny you should say that, and naming people that inspired you. You know, I can trace back at each school I've been to, because I moved around a little bit, who helped me at each place. And it's been, you know, people remark over the years, you keep in touch with so many people. Well, they were part of my journey. That's important to me. You know, at De La Salle in Minneapolis, where I went right after Rome in my official year one, which was much better than practice year one. Marty Marin was the lead coach for the new teachers. He just got inducted into De La Salle's Hall of Fame for the LaSallian Award, well-deserved. Gina Hagley that first year, Stacy Carter in guidance. You know, the list goes on. And then at Bonner and Prendy, Anne-Marie Dossamore, Andrea Ciliberti, the principal now. You know, there's so many people along the way who take us under their wing, who believe in us, who see that we might need an extra hand. And then really they become lifelong confidants and friends in many cases. That's how you and I met.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, I could do the same thing. I was in a lot of places. I don't actually think in 30 years I've been in as many places as you've been in like 10 years.
I didn't pay the bills. That's the problem.
But yeah, I remember one of the lessons that I learned very early on from one of our, I think she was the social worker at a school. I taught in a high school for emotionally disturbed kids, the community school. Well, it was the County Alternative High School.
I know you loved it there.
I did love it there. And again, I learned so many. I probably every day I'm in a classroom, I use a lesson that I learned in community school, because if you can teach in a place like community school, I literally can teach anywhere. It's in Middletown Township. So it's like near Aston. It's not far from. Yes, it's still open. It's run by the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. They do awesome things there. Just, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. Emotionally disturbed high school students. Some of them come from court, from like court adjudicated facilities. They're going back. It's rough, but you do God's work there, even if you're not allowed to say, because it's public education. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So many lessons that I learned.
Living out the gospel.
Yes. You don't have to teach in Catholic school to live out the gospel.
Right.
And I feel like that's one of the lessons that I had to kind of learn when I was teaching in public school. Like, how do I want to be like a follower, but not admit that I'm really a follower, so to speak, and not say it to my kids. And that's what I loved about coming to Catholic education. That to me is the best part about Catholic education, because you can it's part of who we are.
Exactly.
We talk about it all the time, every day, all day long. You cannot talk about Jesus too much.
And it's not an identity. It's who we are.
Right.
It's our soul and being, and I think it's St. Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel but if necessary, use words. And St. Anthony of Padua, actions speak louder than words. And we learned that at the Archbishop's Day this past year. I didn't know that before, but very, very true that, Catholic education, we are blessed because we get to practice and live our faith every day. But even in society, even in the community, in a public school setting, there are ways that we can still live out that gospel call.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that this might be a good place to stop for chapter 1. I hope our readers enjoy the introduction and chapter 1. And we thank you very much for joining us in the first discussion.
Like every good Catholic school teacher, though, we have some homework for you. I will see you for chapter 2. And so for our next session, be sure to check out chapter 2, and I'll be leading the discussion next time. Get ready.
All right. So until next time, like, subscribe, and follow. And remember, stay faithful, stay fearless, and as always, stay Philly. God bless. We'll see you on the next podcast.
That was great, Maria.